For years, media plans have been put in a black box that you didn't have access to. Until now. Now, Illumin has reinvented advertising technology. Now you can see everything. The Illumin Journey Canvas lets you plan, buy, and see results on a single platform in real time. Drag and drop your creative to plan the consumer journey on any digital channel and activate it. Track the consumer journey, target the right message at the right time, and get a better return on your advertising spend. Illuminate the consumer journey with unparalleled insights, all the way to conversion. Illumin is advertising automation like you've never seen before. Goodbye, Black Box. Hello, everything.
Hello. Every year, we feature some of the leading brands who are doing some really, really exciting work that produces amazing outcomes, which is always worthwhile to bring to the crowd in an occasion like this. Obviously, the purpose of Ad Week, as we meet here every year, is to celebrate good accomplishments, great accomplishments by the brands, right? The topic this year is about driving sales and market share growth. As you can imagine, this is a topic on every CEO and every CMO's mind. And it is something that we're going to dig into as a topic at length, a lot deeper, in conversation with one of the leading brands in the DTC category that has produced spectacular growth over the past few years. With that, let me tell you who we have with us. We have a couple panelists with us. Rob Towne is from Purple Mattress. It was also known as Purple Innovation, rightfully so. Rob, we will come to you here just in a second as I set this up. And we have Andrey Feldman, who leads all of the product development and the leadership at AcuityAds. DTC space is the one in focus for today because it's been all the buzz over the past 10 years. As we have seen the emergence of digital brands that have actually produced some of the largest contributions historically from a GDP contribution point of view, over $1 trillion as of the last reading in 2016. If you were wondering what the record or the data, which is tracked every 4 years, what it would look like in 2020, you don't have to look very far. If you look at how fast and rapid the growth has been over the past 10 to 12 weeks in e-commerce, the next number in terms of growth and contribution to GDP will look something quite substantive. In particular, if you look at the DTC space, it's all about challenger brands who've been stealing share from the established ones. If you look at, whether you look at the mattress space, whether you look at the male grooming space, or a variety of other spaces, the challenger brands have actually demonstrated, and it's well documented at this point, in terms of the amount of share that has actually shifted towards some of the DTC brands. One of the brands that we are spotlighting today is Purple.
So we are celebrating our 5th anniversary. So it doesn't seem like it's been that long. Time moves by very quickly. But yeah, 5 years ago is when we began. And it was an idea from two brothers, the Pierce brothers. What they started decades ago was just being able to innovate in the kind of gel manufacturing space. And they discovered, after making different medical devices, shoe inserts and everything else, that actually there was something to be had here that could be implemented in a consumer-facing product that came as a mattress. So really early on, Tony set it up as a basic Kickstarter, and it was $171,000 of roaring success as far as crowdfunding goes. I guess at that point, they didn't really know how far it was going to take them. But more recently, we've seen that it's continued to grow like crazy.
It is so amazing. But before we go too far on Purple, which there is so much to talk about and so much to celebrate here, tell us something about your role at Purple.
So I'm the director of performance marketing at Purple. And so I've been building a team there that handles everything from native ads and SEO to paid search, shopping, display, and video. And our goal is really just to find the best return on ad spend that we can to reach the right audiences, give them the right messages, and make sure that the individuals that we're interacting with, those consumers, can find their way through the funnel and end up converting.
So Rob, if I was the CEO of Purple, you would be the one I would be coming to if I really wanted to drive real sales in dollars and cents. So essentially the buck stops at you, right? Okay, tell us a little bit more. How do you do it? What is the Purple formula in terms of where you started? You know, from the innovation, of course, that you talked about. Build from there. What have you done in terms of the marketing machinery here?
Yeah, so, we understood early on that we can make a splash by telling people about our product and by letting them know that this is different than anything else they've seen, as far as it's not memory foam. It doesn't have some of those drawbacks. It's very temperature neutral. It's motion isolating in ways that people haven't seen before, but it's a really complicated product. So at the same time that we're talking about it, we have to help not just in an advertisement that's a short 2 seconds on the screen type of thing, but how can we continue that conversation either with really long form videos where it's entertaining, but it also is starting to, explain to people what the product does and why it's different, to having really complicated sequences that will give those different aspects of the benefits one piece at a time.
Totally, I understand what you're saying. I mean, who hasn't seen the Purple ad, the Goldilocks ad in particular, right? The stuff that actually goes 4 minutes long. And it's still very funny. It's very engaging. It's very exciting. So some of the videos you're referring to are just totally amazing. But I think the other things that you're pointing to, which is really like the differentiating elements of your proposition, the benefits of why the pillow is so different than any other pillow that I may be looking at in the marketplace, I think those are truly, truly enticing and so forth. How do you define performance marketing? Just in your own words, what does it mean? What does it have to do? You mentioned something about there has to be a journey element to that. Just elaborate a little bit so that the audience really understands what does that real day-to-day blocking, tackling really looks like?
Well, across all of our marketing at Purple, we don't really feel like we've got as much of a budget as a lot of the huge Fortune 5 companies that are out there. And so we have to be really smart with it. So every dollar that we're putting out into the market to buy some media, to buy video impressions, to buy static advertising, every single dollar needs to be accounted for. And so, there might be a little bit of brand budget for certain things here or there, but the majority of what we're doing is always connected to the performance. And so, that name for our team is really to focus on how we can get the most out of every dollar we're putting in.
Perfect. That's great. Let me come back to you. I'm going to switch over to Andrey. Andrey, tell us about your role at AcuityAds, and also tell us something about the most exciting news this week from AcuityAds that you've actually been working on behind the scenes.
Thank you, Seraj. And I'm the Vice President of Products at AcuityAds, where I lead product strategy and the product organization consisting of product management, design, and user research. And it couldn't be a more exciting time to talk about advertising technology, and especially with what we have been up to for the last year and a half or so. Traditionally, most DSPs and programmatic services are really at odds with how marketers plan and execute their journey. On the one hand, you have people sitting in a room talking about the consumer journey, planning it end to end, and then it all gets siloed and broken down, and you see line items and tactics, and it's being executed by sometimes different teams, different organizations, in a complete disconnect, in a gap from how marketers plan and do that. And that's why it's so exciting for me, because at Acuity, we've been working to change that. We want to give marketers back control over how they not just plan, but also execute and buy media. And that's exactly what our technology does. So our new platform, illumin, really brings together planning and execution in one single intuitive to use canvas space, and allows marketers like Rob from Purple to test different approaches, different sequences, different ads, not just focus on one campaign at a time, but on the entire journey, really giving marketers back control over how they spend their dollars, who they're spending it on, and making sure that every dollar counts.
That is very, very interesting, right? I mean, look, which marketer do we know that doesn't want something like that, that is truly providing clear transparency, see through into exactly where the different customer cohorts are at any point in time? What does it really take to transition consumers from one stage to the next and so forth? Rob, you know, as I was thinking about your business, it's so interesting. Purple is a premium brand. And given that, right, the decision that a consumer needs to make on making a purchase from Purple is actually a considered buy, isn't it?
Yeah, it can take anywhere from weeks to months for somebody to really pull the trigger and make their decision that they're going to be buying this product. And the truth is, we have a lot of people who are out of market because they may have just bought something else. And a mattress is something people only buy every several years. And so if it's a 5-year cycle, if it's an 8-year cycle, we have to find the right person then who's maybe in that moment when they're in different part of a life stage. They might be moving out or moving into a different home situation. They might be in a co-sleeping situation or doing something where they're adding children to a family and looking to improve that sleep situation. All of those are different audiences that we need to approach in very distinct ways. Because of everything else, it does take more time for someone to end up making that decision.
Yes, absolutely. And I think given the variety and the diversity of audiences you're talking about and where they are in their different stages, right? It means that even the entry points are different, right? Some are very familiar with Purple, others aren't. And therefore, depending on the familiarity, depending on how much they have interacted with you before, it determines like exactly where you enter and what you do. So Andrey, coming back to you, right? I mean, given that, right, it seems that there are quite a few complexities in terms of the actual development of this whole platform. So I know you've been running a beta program. Tell us a little bit more about that. What was the objective behind it and what are you learning?
Yeah, so taking a platform and putting things like planning and execution together in one spot is a massive effort, and it's a huge undertaking. And certainly beta was super critical to the success of the overall program. And from the start, we've been working with customers like Purple to make sure that we really tackle all of the areas. And from our perspective, what we have seen and some of the feedback that we've got is, on the one hand, we validated the connection and the canvas and the ease of planning and the ability to execute media buy with a push of a button. But at the same time, we also learned a lot. And measurement is becoming more difficult. Now, when you're putting together multiple stages of the journey, and it's not just desperate campaigns or tactics that are running in silos, you can't measure things in the same way. And there were a lot of learnings from that. And again, Purple and Rob and his team were instrumental in that learning.
Let me go back to Rob on that. So Rob, it's obviously we appreciate that you have engaged on this, because anytime there is something new and something different out there in the market, doesn't matter how exciting and how great the claims may be, until a marketer, an advertiser like yourself, who actually puts it to the real test, kicks the tires to really figure out what's the reality here, it really doesn't matter, right? It's a claim. What has been your experience in terms of your early interactions with the platform that Andrey has been talking about?
One of the things that I think is most beneficial to us with Illumin is our ability to give more life to some of our Evergreen Creative. So we are used to kind of running on a quarterly basis when we have some new Evergreen assets that we can run, and then we have something else come along and that'll replace it. We'll have seasonal sales that'll come, and then just kind of the effort that's required to set up new campaigns and to run in a new direction kind of aids in maybe having those other ones fade off earlier than they might be still productive. And so part of what we're using Illumin for is that opportunity to build a sequence where we can talk to people about the comfort, about the convenience, about the auxiliary products that are not our mattress, about the financing options. We can kind of keep that full mix in there and let it all be determined based on the behavior of the customer. We've tried to work on hacking together these type of solutions in other ways. I remember, on YouTube, when somebody views this video, we send them into another audience, and we try and take that audience and send it into another audience based on the view behavior. But we always would seem to break something, and we wouldn't get the scale that we were looking for. And so I think, it's exciting for us to see the direction of Illumin and probably the rest of the market to follow suit, where it does build these sequences as kind of an intrinsic part of the journey.
That's very, very interesting, right? I mean, look at the complexity we are dealing with. I think on that particular point, Rob, let me push further. When you look at your marketing or advertising mix, the media mix in particular, right? Just tell us, how far has this actually expanded? Like every which way I turn, there is a new channel or a new access point. How do you manage this? How are you managing your mix?
We are doing a whole lot of different ways that we can try and measure the incrementality and the impact of every channel that we're adding. And so, a while back, we may have just had that one Kickstarter, and then we add a little bit of PR, start to have paid search and social media and display ads and video. Every piece that we add on, we know there is some level of overlap with something else that we're already doing. And so when somebody becomes a new customer of Purple, is Google taking credit and Facebook also taking credit for that same single conversion? How do we divide up the value of that? We use third-party multi-touch attribution to try and really tease out the data and understand better when those conversions are happening, if somebody should get all of the credit, some of the credit, none of the credit, based on what their impact has been. And so across the board, anytime we're testing, anytime we're running our always on type of programs, we make sure that we are not just monitoring that with the in-platform data, but we're also using multi-touch attribution. We have post-purchase surveys involved to try and validate some of that. So whatever we can to really bring that data into a more usable realm. The tricky part is when we look at a single customer's journey, like I mentioned earlier, it takes months at times for somebody to really make their decision, and it's complicated. They might be, there's not only cross-device conversion, there's cross-spouse conversion that happens in something like this. And so we have to really understand from not only a device side, but at a household level, what those different interactions are. What are the impressions that we're serving? And are we seeing the impressions being truly incremental, or is it better that we, maybe carve out some of other areas where we thought maybe 20 impressions here made sense, actually 10 might be right, and then we'll put 5 in this other area, 5 in another, and build it out that way.
That is so fascinating, right, Rob? I mean, look, sitting where you are, it's an amazing, delicate balance. Like you're constantly pursuing this evolving optimization, which is a huge multi-variable dynamic optimization that's going on, right, across all these different channels. And you have to know, like, where does the next dollar go? And that's really where you're going to get the most productivity out of the next dollar. Let me switch over to Andrey. So Andrey, if you are talking about journey, what kind of insights are you seeing or are you able to depict to help a client like Rob and his team, of course, because he has a very broad team, to be able to see, and how much visibility would he have in terms of the use of that incremental dollar down the different stages of the journey?
It's interesting. There's no one right answer. It is a very challenging subject overall, right? What can you show at any given point in time? What is going to add the most value, especially when you consider the multitude of the different channels and mediums that are involved? And again, now we're not looking at a single campaign, we're looking at an entire journey where at a single space, you can have ads being served over video and display and audio, etc. So what we have done, and again, we've worked really closely with our customers on that, so it really came from them, we've created several layers of insights. On the one hand, we're trying to show on each different creative what was the incrementality and which one worked best and what was the path that the customer has taken. At the same time, we also provide a view into the funnel in its live form. So Rob and his team can take a look and see exactly where most of the audiences are, and if there are any bottlenecks, and address those right away. Finally, one other aspect that we've added is we wanted to provide the ability to see how those different audiences score on their propensity to convert, and what is the brand value lift that Rob can see from each advertising campaign, again, all to be used to adjust the journey, real time, swap creatives, change conditions, optimize, get the most out of every dollar, and really get that incrementality down to the T and frequency and reach.
Well, that's amazing. Like, it appears like a truly real-time engine, which
Absolutely.
is essentially providing a lot of transparency. I mean, this sounds very sophisticated, but in terms of the interface, it appears like very natural. You can actually see the things that really you as a marketer care about, which I think is quite fascinating, right? You mentioned earlier that measurement is going to be an evolving challenge, and I can see that as I connect the dots with what Rob just earlier said. The rate at which the channels, especially addressable channels, are expanding, it is going to be a real challenge for your development team to be able to plug into all these diversity of screens that are evolving over time, and to be able to produce and continue to deliver this level of transparency, which is an expectation. Once you show it, right, it's going to become an expectation. The next time, Rob, I know you're going to be like insisting that you get that level of transparency, right?
Always, we will be very insistent working with any technology, whether it's brand new or whether it's well established. We insist that we can get as much data out of it as possible. There's a lot of difficulties when we're working with kind of those walled gardens that are out there that won't let us have access to some of our own customer information. And it makes it difficult because we have a complicated back end where we've got our own data warehouse, and the way that we're slicing and dicing that data with our own analytics team internally is very key to our success and our growth. And if we don't have that data coming in, whether that's clickstream data or the ability to integrate third-party tags into impression tracking, then it's just not going to be able to be an integral part of our systems.
Completely. I can see your constant pursuit for transparency and data, and yet the walls and the screens continue to exist out there. So you try to penetrate as best as you can. And I think Illumin, as Andrey is describing, is as an attempt towards providing you that level of clarity within the spaces of the media where you're actually operating, right? It was delightful, guys, to have this conversation with you. I always learn so much, and I learned so much today. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much to the audience for you guys joining us. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
For years, media plans have been put in a black box that you didn't have access to. Until now. Now, Illumin has reinvented advertising technology. Now you can see everything. The Illumin Journey Canvas lets you plan, buy, and see results on a single platform in real time. Drag and drop your creative to plan the consumer journey on any digital channel and activate it. Track the consumer journey, target the right message at the right time, and get a better return on your advertising spend. Illuminate the consumer journey with unparalleled insights, all the way to conversion. Illumin is advertising automation like you've never seen before. Goodbye, Black Box. Hello, everything.